In this tutorial today, we're going to take a look at the Shopify Flow, and we're going to create a simple flow on how you can return the Shopify identifier back to an external application through the HTTP request method. So let's take a walk through this process. So let's start off within Shopify. The first couple of things we're going to need to do is we're going to go over to, once you're in your store, we're going to go to Settings. We're going to navigate to Custom Data, and the first thing we're going to do is create a custom meta field. So you probably have a bunch of other different meta field definitions, but let's add one here. And for the sake of this tutorial, let's just call this the Salsify ID. And the theory here is that what we're going to do is store the Salsify ID for the relating record as it's passed through the connector. So let's just add a quick description here. This is the unique Salsify ID. And then for type, let's just do a single line text, which is basically just a string. We're not going to have any validations. You can add some access to which storefronts and features, etc. For this, we're just going to click Save. All right, so we've created our metadata field, and now we're just going to get into Shopify Flow. So you'll see here that I do not have any created on the store, so you may need to allow some access first if you haven't created any yet, and let's get into creating a workflow. So let's create a new workflow from scratch, and the way we're going to do this here is select a trigger, and what we want to do is every time a new product is created within the platform, we want it to execute this workflow that's going to return that Shopify ID back to that external system, or in our case, Salsify. So I'm just going to search for a product, and then we will add a product is added to the store. So the theory here is that as Salsify creates a product through the Shopify connector, this workflow would be automatically executed. So we say a product is added to the store, and then we will add an additional action. And for this, you can execute an external HTTP request, which is just essentially calling an external API. And now what we'll do here is just put in the update record endpoint for Salsify. So this is going to be a put method. Let's throw in our URL for the platform. So put in the URL. Then we'll add some headers for the HTTP request. So our authorization, which is our API token, content type application JSON, and then let's just put in the body here. So our body is going to be JSON, and you can of course send additional content back to Salsify, but in our case, what we're going to do is we just have our product identifier, and then you can see here we're using a liquid variable that's going to return the Salsify ID that's stored on the product. So if you're sending over a product through that Salsify Shopify connector, the idea here is that you're also sending that unique Salsify ID just to cross-reference the records. And then additionally here, we want to store the Shopify GUID, so the unique identifier within the platform. And this is going to create that reference of, hey, what's the Shopify ID within Salsify? And so that's going to allow you to do additional updates through the connector. If you don't have any errors, you shouldn't see any within the platform. Let's just give this workflow a quick name. So let's say when on product creation, send Shopify ID back to Salsify. All right, you can definitely add additional conditions and actions to this workflow. Maybe you want to send an email, maybe you want to do some additional actions, but just for the simple request, we're just going to update the external application. Now, something to be mindful of, there are API rate limits for Salsify, such as 5,000 requests per hour. So these workflows in Shopify are going to execute on the product level. So something to be mindful if you're sending over multiple different products to Shopify at a time, that'll be a point of concern. So I have my product here. I'm within Salsify. I've got this created, some basic data, I can even see them storing my Shopify handle, but I don't have that Shopify unique identifier. So in theory here, if you were to publish through the Shopify connector, go to channels, you have got your Shopify connector. You can publish this through and it's going to create that product within Shopify. But just so we can see this work, let's manually create a product in Shopify. So I'm just going to say add product. I'm just going to give it some of that same base information, as if I was creating this through the connector. So let's just call it my coastal surfboard. And let's just say this is a really cool surfboard. Let's just skip all the other information for the sake of the tutorial. Let's just add a basic SKU in. Of course, this would be unique to your business. So you will see here down on the bottom, the Salsify identifier. So what this is, the unique identifier in Salsify. If I just navigate back here real quick, I can see my unique identifier. So let's save this. Now, behind the scenes of Shopify, that workflow is executing. So let's just navigate over to Flow. I can see the workflow, and then you can see the run history down below, and we can see that it was succeeded. The workflow executed as expected. Navigate back to products. Let's just refresh this page here. And now we see there is an additional property within Salsify called that Shopify GUID, which is the unique identifier. And now what you can do here is in your channel mappings, you can use this unique identifier to essentially update the product record within Shopify versus a new product creation. All right, hope that tutorial on using Shopify Flow to do a round trip of the unique identifier was beneficial. Please subscribe to the page for more tutorials on all things technology.